independence and interdependence. It is a very nice theme that the organizers have selected for today, and combined with that is the self-chosen theme for my talk, that is public service and personal growth. When we talk about public service, we are not just talking about government, the organs of the government, government officials. We have to broaden the perspective. Once when I was in the National Police Academy, I was asked to give a talk or a presentation about human rights in the annual conference of the DGPs in Delhi. So, I examined the Human Rights Act, and in my presentation I made very critical comments that the Human Rights Act focused more on judges' appointment to the various posts that were created at that time, their qualifications and their compensation, the facilities of office, perks and things like that, and very little on defining the rights of the human being. What are these blessed rights, which this commission is supposed to ensure? When I pointed it out, nobody was pleased. The Minister of State for Home was there, the Director of Intelligence Bureau who was conducting the proceedings almost tried to stop me. He said, all these things you can put into writing and send to us. I got upset. I said, if you do not have the time, then I will stop my presentation now. The Minister of State for Home, he started laughing. So, this is the attitude of people, we are self-centered, nobody really, please switch off your phones.
2 push-ups.
Nobody is really interested in serving the public. They just want to impress the public. We have enacted so many acts and legislation. Here it is to protect you, but actually they are protecting themselves, they are providing for themselves. So, this is the spirit of public service prevailing in every department of our government, state, central, public sector. Wherever you go, people are trying to protect themselves, serve themselves. It is not even in their dreams, how can I help the poor fellow out there on the streets, in the households, in his farmland. We do not think about him, see. Ultimately, what this legislation or an executive order or the manual prepared by the department is going to serve the purposes of the nameless individuals that comprise the electorate or public, so called public. So, the public comes last, I come first. This is the attitude in this country. As long as it continues, there is no hope for us. Therefore, the solution lies in individual change in our attitude. If I am working in a public sector company or a service organization or in an NGO, what am I doing for the members of the public or for my customers or those who depend on me? This thought should come into the minds of all these functionaries, the people responsible for the satisfaction of the people who we are serving. It takes a little bit of change within, even to appreciate this fact that we exist for others, that we are living in an interdependent society. We are not expected to seek our own satisfaction, security, happiness, our future and things like that. That is all very old fashioned. It deprives life of all its nobility and whatever value there is to this life. It becomes very selfish, very animalistic. Each one tries to occupy a certain turf, expand the turf, keep it against invaders and predators, rivals, competitors, and we scarcely think about people who are supposed to be served by us. So, this applies to every organization, every household, every office, every school. Each one is looking at himself or herself. When will I get this job? When will I get this post? When will I get this promotion? When will I get this scale of pay? I have been in government. I know one of the mighty obsessions of government officials is promotion and the pay scale, and how much pension they will get when they retire. There is no noble motive activating all these people, you see, private sector or government sector. Nobility is lacking. It is very true that when we take up a job, the prime motive is to find some means of sustenance, to maintain ourselves. That is the beginning. But once we have found that means of sustenance and we have settled down there, and we now start realizing that we have a great deal of potential to help people in promoting their happiness rather than ours, then the whole game changes. Now, it is for them I exist, it is not for myself I exist. When I have this realization, then I change, because my heart is now opening up. In my first 14 years of service in the police, I was a very self-centered person, because my training was like that, the culture in my department was like that. Each individual was worried only about himself. When is his promotion coming, when is the next posting, and where am I going, just as you mentioned, resistance to change, you see. There are some posts which are not very good, not sought after. They are even labeled as punishment postings. See. When my Sambandhi Johri Sahab was posted to Pithoragarh, he came to master and said, they are sending me away because I am straightforward and I am not flexible. They are posting me to Pithoragarh. No facilities there, you see. Master said, go there, it will be good for you. He went and worked there for 4 years or 5 years, you see. Later on in my career also, when I had a very unpleasant, posting, in the sense the circumstances were unpleasant. I was the DGP of Karnataka and I was inflexible and held on to my own values and my own discipline in the department, refused to do the bidding of the Chief Minister and the MLAs. They threw me out to Delhi. The last posting I had was in Delhi as DG Railway Protection Force. I asked Master, I phoned him up, he was somewhere in Ahmedabad at that time. He said, yes, I have been watching the newspapers, I know everything that is happening, but I would advise you to go and take charge in Delhi. I thought he would sympathize with me and say, go, you can go to the court or something. He did not say any such thing, do not fight with these politicians, you go and take charge. It will be good for you, he said. He knows best. It was good for me, as things turned out later. So, slowly I was trained by master to get rid of this fear of postings, fear of unknown places, new locations, shifting family, resettling them, etc., etc. One of the many traumatic things mentioned by Alvin Toffler in his book, what was it, Arpan? What was that book? The Future Shock. This came in the 70s, 75, 76. Alvin Toffler, who passed away last year, he has written 1 or 2 more books also. This was a top seller at that time, and he mentioned how people are shocked by anticipation of the future unfolding. So, a transfer to a new place, a relocation is full of shock. Or parting with a friend, or parting with a spouse, these are all very shocking things people will have to adjust to, and very often they are high and dry when they have to resolve these shocks. So, in my department also, in the government also, there is this kind of a thing which your bosses use, the threat of a transfer, the threat of a relocation, You see, all that we have to do is to welcome them, to accept them. That is the way for personal growth. 1987, I was transferred to Delhi. I went to Master in Gayatri. I said, this offer has come to Indian Oil Corporation as the Executive Director Vigilance. I thought Master would say, why do you shift from Bangalore? It's a nice place. He said, accept what comes. One sentence, and then he went into his room. He didn't want to discuss this. Accept what comes. So, when you go into the spiritual path, we have to develop a spirit of attitude of acceptance, not to question what is happening to us. Because Master used to say, when I say Master, my Chariji Maharaj, with whom I was associated for 32 years, who passed away in the year 2014. He taught us to accept life, to accept whatever comes, without attaching a positive value or a negative value to that. In fact, he used to say everything has a relevance. When the soul comes into the body, when we take incarnation, the soul has already decided how to live this life, how to use this as a ladder for our higher development. That is what I meant by personal growth. Personal growth is not merely physical or economical or intellectual. The real personal growth is inside, see, which the soul has already road mapped. But when we start growing up, our ego comes and interposes and says, no, this is not good for you. You go in search of this achievement, this pleasure, this much of wealth, name, fame, whatever. So, we go astray from the path designed for us by the soul. So, that is why all our conflicts arise, all our fears, all our anxieties, all our psychological and psychic problems arise because we are led astray by our own ego, by our own mind, which plots a different course from the one that the soul has already plotted for us. Therefore, the Master said, accept. The soul has decided when to come, when to leave, and what to do in between for its own evolution. The evolution is from the spiritual plane we had achieved in earlier incarnations to still higher levels. Few people will understand this because we hardly think about these things. Why am I here? When I say I, what do I mean by I? What is the purpose of this life? What is the goal of this life? These questions come very late, you see, for many of us. Now, we find about young people, we find a lot of young people coming into spirituality. That is because in their former lives, they have already achieved a certain level. So, when they are 15, 12, 13, 14, they have a great awareness now, the present generation. And when they are 15 now, they are enabled to start their meditation by our Guru. Please note down. So, when you interrupt me, I lose my train of thought, then it is difficult to pick up the thread. So, let us not interpose between what the soul has planned and what my mind dictates now. I shall chase this in this life, I will succeed in this, etc., etc. Accept what happens in your personal life, your life will be happy. But develop higher aspiration, the highest aspiration, that was the teaching of my Master. The highest aspiration for your life in the eternal plane, how you should evolve higher and higher, spiritually of course, because there is no limit to your accumulation of wealth, knowledge, pleasures and comforts in life. Everything comes to an end. everything goes up like smoke, and then at the end of your life you start wondering what was the purpose of all this competition, all this rivalry, all jealousies, see, untiring efforts to achieve certain illusory goals. So, the disillusionment comes at the end. What did I do with my life all these years? So, master says, better wake up, sit up and chart your goal, the path, find a guide. Once you are convinced that he is a proper guide in this unknown dimension, namely a spiritual path, then follow him. However bitter it is, unpleasant it is, subordinate your ego, subordinate your own ambitions and desires, and follow the path of inner development. Inner development is nothing but expansion of our hearts, expansion of our consciousness, that we have responsibilities not only to our own safety, security, etc., but also to the safety and security and well-being and the upward evolution of all other human beings, without limitation of race, language, caste, community, religion, whatever. We become universal in spirit, and we have glorious examples of the great spiritual masters. See. So, whether you are a policeman or an executive in a company, or a teacher in a school, or a professor in a college, there is no limit to our consciousness. We can keep on expanding it. It is a limitless balloon which keeps on expanding to the extent we develop the self-awareness and follow the eternal principles of spiritual sadhana, self-effort and acceptance, humble acceptance and obedience to the guidance of a guru, who we have to very carefully select, because when we look for a guru, we must have the highest expectations. There are gurus who grant our wishes for a good job, for money, for healing and things like that, material benefits. But we have to seek a guru who will take us to the ultimate goal of realization of God within us, self within us, the expansion of our consciousness to the ultimate limit. Otherwise, we will just remain where we are. There will be no difference between what we were when we were young, when we were children, and what we are when we die as old people. We have not grown inwardly. Like little children, even towards the end of our lives, we are only competing for material things, for our egoistic desires. We continue to be immature because the heart has remained shrunk. What are the manifestations of the heart unshrinking, expanding? That is our concern for the others. Now, somebody said, I am a housewife, I have no public contact, how can I serve the public? Here by public we mean the other, that is all. As Jesus Christ said, somebody asked this very interesting question, because Jesus used to talk about loving your neighbor and serving your neighbor, helping your neighbor like the good Samaritan, etc. So, Jesus replied, said, the person you have not known, the person who is a stranger, the person who is in need of help, a kind word, encouragement, material help, a meal or a drink, that person is your neighbor. It is not physically the neighbor who lives next door. So, any person who is in need is your neighbor. So, being at home, being a householder, being a mother, head of a household, you can still help people. And secondly, as master used to quote often, charity begins at home. So, you do your duties as a mother, as a wife, as a householder, Grahalakshmi, as my master used to say. The love with which you perform your duties, it is going to cause ripples all around. Reach your community, reach the very boundaries of your village, your town, your state, your world, because whatever we do causes ripples. As Swami Vivekananda said, whatever you say, whatever you do, it goes out of you and comes back to you. It goes around the universe and comes back to you. So, if you do good, if you speak good words to others, it comes back to you. That means, if you have to personally grow, you have to say good things, you have to do good things, and you have to think good things. Your thoughts, your actions, your words must be of such a quality that it comes back to you. If they are good, pure, unselfish, you get the same thing from others. My master used to say, the people who serve will always be served. I was in a place called Minsk in Belarus. He had sent me there. I just phoned him up to say that I was there. I was properly housed and looked after by our brothers and sisters there in the mission. I said, they are looking after me, master, very well, no problem. He immediately said, he who serves will be served. So, this is the supreme aspect or the value of service to others. Then you do not have to worry about service to yourself. It will be automatic, because nature has to reward you, but we should still perform service without any expectation of reward or return of that service. Do not have any expectations, because expectations, according to my master, led to many disappointments and frustrations, and it throws poison into our relationships. Oh, I did this good to him and he never responded. He never showed gratitude to me. This is one fundamental block in our interpersonal relationships, you see. This works in our mind always. We want a return of what we have done to others. Therefore, we should not think about the results of our actions. My master used to say, it is your duty to perform your duty, but it is not your duty to expect a certain kind of results flowing from it. What makes us terribly unhappy is this expectation. So, he even made it a commandment, expect not lest thou be disappointed. Expect not lest thou be disappointed. He made it the 11th commandment, he said, 11th maxim. Expectation makes us unhappy, restless, and spoils our relationships with people, which should be open, broad minded and broad hearted, you see. So, let us do only our part, that is service, and let us not worry about the results or the fruits of action. As Lord Krishna has said, the fruits of action is not for us to worry about. It is for him to give us the fruits of action in his own time. So, you do something good today, the result may come to you 10 years later, 20 years later. It is not like instant food, you order pizza, within 20 minutes it is at your door. But service should not be treated like that, immediate results, no. There is no instant result in spirituality. We sow seeds in the long term, both good and bad. So, the wise man will refrain from sowing the bad seeds, because they will, in the fullness of time, they will also crop up and come to him. He will have to reap those bad crops, and there is no point in blaming God. Why am I singled out for this disease? Why am I singled out for this humiliation or tragedies? Because we are reaping what we sowed. So, let us only sow the good seeds night and day, that is love. The good seed is love, and to bring about that love without any reservation, without any qualification, we have to attend to our hearts, clean up our hearts. All the garbage of our existence lies in the heart, unseen, invisible, but it keeps coming out all the time as thoughts, and thoughts proceed into action. Completing the cycle, strong thoughts proceeding to strong actions, develop what we call karma or samskara in our language. And there we have a package, a cyclic package: thoughts, actions, karma. And then we have no control over our lives. And therefore, our ancients discovered a path called Raja Yoga for regulation of the mind. Patanjali, the great rishi, is supposed to have formalized and compiled this into a science and a practice. The sutras, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which later on Swami Vivekananda annotated for our benefit. But yet what Vivekananda taught his disciples was very tough. Ashtanga Yoga, 8 steps of 8 steps of yoga, starting with yogasanas and ending with samadhi. The 7th step was dhyana. And now our masters of Sahaj Marg, what we now call heartfulness system, they simplified the whole thing and they make it available straight away. You do not have to do yogasanas and follow the other steps. You can be taught meditation straight away, all because the master or the guru or the teacher or the guide, he cleans your heart, removes those samskaras, remove the the old inputs of karma in your heart. When the heart is cleaned progressively by the guide and you practice this system regularly, you find your heart expands, not physically, your consciousness expands to include more and more people, and finally the entire universe. Somebody talked about the environment. As the heart expands, you become also environmentally conscious of your responsibility to preserve the environment, physical environment. The God given environment has to be preserved, over exploitation has to be avoided, pollution has to be prevented at the individual level, conservation of nature. Then comes the mental environment, the intellectual environment, and then the spiritual environment inside. This is all the manifestation of the progress of expansion that happens to human consciousness as he proceeds with spiritual practice, a sadhana system under a capable guide. Without a capable guide, we cannot progress even 1 inch. I used to practice a kind of meditation before starting meditation here in this system. I did my own thing, you see, keeping the picture of Sri Ramakrishna. At that time, I was very much attached to Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, and I wanted to meditate, and I went to Ramakrishna Mission and asked them, please teach me meditation. They said, no, we do not teach meditation to grahasthas, only to monks. So, I created my own method. I used to sit every morning after a ritual bath in a small room I had designated for it, but nothing worked. Even for 5-6 minutes, I could not sit comfortably. Then I knew I needed guidance, I needed help. When I mentioned it to a friend of mine who was meditating in this Sahaj Marg system or heartfulness system, He said, you come to Sri Ramchandra mission, there only you can be taught to meditate. You can leave it if you do not like it. That appealed to me very much. That escape route was already there. See. So, he took me to a preceptor. After 3 sessions, I sat for meditation at home, and I found I was going somewhere. I was lost somewhere. Then I knew, yes, this is the way for me. This is the path. So, by undergoing an experience only you get conviction, not through lectures like this what I am giving. It is by practice. Practice proves the point. However much you can describe how to make sambar, unless I make sambar and serve it to you, you will not know what it is. I mentioned sambar as an example because I am fond of sambar and I can make excellent sambar. And my grandchildren love it. So, you have to do it, you have to feel it, and then experience the change that comes from within. So, every day as you practice, you keep on changing. See, that change is really the manifestation of the growth that is happening, the inner growth, the inner evolution that is happening at the level of your soul. The heart is your soul, the heart is your guru, the heart is your God, the heart is yourself, whatever name. And when you establish that contact, re-establish the contact and communication with your heart, with your soul, through the practice of meditation and the assistance of the guide who cleans up the heart of all the past accumulation of unwanted things, anger, lust, emotions, see, greed, prejudices, jealousy, everything is there inside man's heart. Even Jesus Christ mentioned that everything is in the heart. From the heart it comes out. Nothing goes into the heart from outside. This is what Jesus Christ said, which is very true. Our masters also say this, we have created stuff and deposited them in the heart through our own thoughts and actions. Now, we need outside help. We have to outsource a guide, a spiritual master, and say, please remove this garbage of countless incarnations. And that is the cyclic package operating within us, resulting in further incarnations, and we get more and more complicated. So, at some stage we feel tired of that cycle and say, I throw up my hands, let somebody come and clear the garbage, give me a new start. Let me find my own heart, my own soul, and let the soul take me to the next level of existence. That is spiritual, that is to be with God. What we describe as God cannot be described. It has no name, no form, no attributes. That nameless, formless, attributeless thing is my reality. I came from that, I exist in that, I have to go back to that. This temporary, disguise that I have adopted was only for my entertainment, my pleasure. But the scene ends, the drama ends at some point or the other, and we have to go back home. And that is the beginning of spirituality according to my master, when I feel, yes, this is not my home, I came from somewhere, I have to go back there. That is the beginning of soul consciousness, that is spirituality. So, that consciousness has to come and keep on expanding infinitely. That is the teaching of our masters, teaching of all the masters, spiritual masters. We are not talking about religious doctrines and dogmas. We have to follow the spiritual teachings of a master who is beyond any religion. My master used to say, Jesus was not a Christian, the Buddha was not a Buddhist, you see. Kabir was neither a Muslim nor a Hindu. The titles were given afterwards, the religions were formed afterwards. They came to release us from all these divisions of religion, our belief systems. They wanted us to go back home, where no belief system exists, where only the heart exists. Into the land of the heart, we have to go back and experience that expansion, which the great masters had realized, had experienced and wanted to share with us. And the service activity that they took up in their lives while they were living was the real public service. My master used to say, we can serve people in many ways. We can provide them their material needs, provide them with food, education, whatever. But the greatest service is the spiritual service. And he gave an example also. You can go on feeding a poor person with a piece of fish every day, and he will be very happy to come and accept it for his own daily sustenance. But supposing we teach him how to fish, the technique and art of fishing, he will become self-supporting for the rest of his life. Our spiritual training is like that. It may not give instant relief from your immediate problems, but it equips you mentally, intellectually and spiritually to ride the problems of this life as a ship rides the waves of the sea. That buoyancy to float on all the problems of the troubled sea of life, that comes to us through spiritual training by the grace of the master. There is no master without disciples, they say. There is an interdependence, to come back to that theme. There is no master without disciples. See? There can be no disciples without a master. You can even go up to God and say, God is dependent on his creation. Creation is not independent. God is not independent. God created and he also is into his creation. And the Upanishads say God would have been very lonely. God was one and he wanted to be many. He wanted to be many, therefore he created. He would have been very lonely, and our masters say that God means the fundamental basic power, and this power would have frozen if God did not go into action. Therefore, he went into creation. So, in creation God is an action. In his own basic self, at the base he is actionless, he is free from even karma, as Lord Krishna mentioned. He is free from karma, but he is doing his karma without being affected by it. And this is an example for us. Whatever karma we do, whatever actions we indulge in it, we should be free from the effects of it. We should not have any expectations. We should not become victims of that karma. So, how do we do that? According to my master, perform all your duties with the thought and the awareness and the consciousness that it is the Lord within, it is the master within who is doing it. It is not me, the lower self, XYZ doing it, it is he. He used to refer to this as constant remembrance of the divine. The constant remembrance of the divine, that he is doing everything that I am doing. He is eating, he is bathing, he is talking, he is solving a problem, he is managing a company. He is taking action against inefficiency, he is punishing a person according to the rules. If I take on that feeling that I am doing it, I create karma for myself. Therefore, I must have that awareness all the time that he is acting through me. That awareness will come only when we reconnect with our heart. Through heartfulness practice, you reconnect and let the heart tell us what to do. This is the sum and substance of the spirituality of these masters. Of Sahaj Marg and masters earlier, they all focused on the heart. Obey your heart. Clean up your heart, reconnect with your heart, and learn to communicate with your heart and get your orders from the heart. If the boss says something which is not correct, which is not legal, ethical or moral, you have every right to say, I am sorry, I cannot implement this direction. If I have to do it, you give it in writing to me, let it go on record. Then also if the conscience protests, I will say give it to somebody else. So, in this way you preserve your independence. So, independence, when we talk about independence and interdependence, that does not mean that you are deprived of your independence to think from your heart and accept the dictates of your heart. If the heart says no, if the heart feels doubtful, my master used to say, do not do it. There might be others waiting to do it, to pick up their promotion or a good chit or an increment. Let them, they are creating their own karma. You be free from that. An honest man is always protected. A moral man, an ethical man is always protected. He must have this faith. I took a friend of mine to master in Bangalore. I had started him on his meditation, just 3 sessions completed. Master happened to be in Bangalore. So, I took him to meet master. His first question was, if I start meditation and if I become good, what will happen to my career? Same problem. See, I will not get very plum postings. I will be pushed aside to a corner in my department. Master immediately said, if an honest man has to suffer, God is a bloody lie, he said. It is a test of one's faith. You have to put your faith to test in such occasions. You will be safeguarded, protected, you will be vindicated. Your stature will grow up. Ultimately, personal growth will reach the top. I did that all through my career, and my stature in my department grew. I was pushed aside for important postings for long time, does not matter, but I stuck on, because I did not allow my heart to be wounded by questionable actions. For a time, it will look like you have been discarded by your own peer group, your own superiors, your own company, whatever you call it. But there is an ultimate power within you, that is your constant basis, your reality, and it cannot abandon you. So, you will be always held up as an example in your society. Later on, for years they will talk about you, how you stood fast for principles, how you refused to reconcile with improper, inappropriate commands, instructions and suggestions. Many of these things will come as suggestions. When I was DCP traffic, I was a young man. I was not an abhyasi, I was not into spirituality, but something had awakened in me. So, one day my commissioner of police in Bangalore, he said, Indira Gandhi is coming tomorrow, we have got a public meeting, we have to gather a big audience in the stadium, please arrange some trucks. Earlier my predecessors probably had been doing that, you see. So, I said, sir, no, that is not my job. Soon after that I was transferred, that is a different story. But I held on to that kind of stand, There was somebody else who arranged the trucks. You will always find somebody else who will do it, but that is not your problem. You keep to your ethics, your morality, your conscience. So, when we talk about independence, yes, we cannot be independent, we are interdependent, but not at the cost of your conscience, your heart.